Thanks everyone for joining. Warm welcome to everyone. I think we've got people tuned in from 90 plus countries online, I believe. Be here for all of us. I'm Rohit Jain. I head Lionsgate for Asia. Been part of the industry for almost 3 decades now. And we've witnessed so many changes and evolution, but this is probably the most exciting time that at least I've seen. And just to set the context, we're talking about today AI and personalization and interactivity. And this is something that's probably been said so many times over the last few days, but it's obviously in the context of a country where we have probably the longest tradition of storytelling, right? We've had tradition of storytelling for more than 5,000 years. And it's fascinating how storytelling has transcended from a more Guru Shishya Parampara to Nukkad Natak to scrolls to now a lot more tech-driven, data-driven format, which has changed in the way we consume stories, it's changed the way we interact with each other, it's changed the way we connect with each other. We have a fantastic panel here, a lot of really good industry colleagues. There's Gaurav Gandhi, who heads Amazon for APAC and MENA. Industry veteran for almost 25 years. Monika, Shergil, VP Content for Netflix. Again, I'm introducing all the panelists, but they all speak for themselves for so many decades. There's Neeraj Roy, founder, CEO for Hungama. There's Gaurav again, Gaurav Banerjee. Gaurav is the MD and CEO for Sony Network India. And then there's Bharat. Bharat heads product and tech for Jiostar. So warm welcome to all of you again. I want to start on the note of personalization. Again, as we spoke about, all the changes that we're seeing in the way personalization is being dealt with. And in a different way, each company is dealing with that differently. And I wanted to start with you, Gaurav. You have a whole ecosystem in Amazon, from shipping shopping to Amazon Prime to Mini TV to more recently MX. How do you look at personalization? Is it a continuum of a journey with same customer with touch point across different medium? Is it a different strategy for different segments and different sort of categories? How are you looking at personalization?
First of all, thank you for having us here, and thanks to Waves and the Ministry of Information Broadcasting and the Honorable Prime Minister. I think for us, the journey on personalization starts with backwards from what we think the customer desires and wants. And because we are an entertainment hub at Prime Video, and which is including our subscription service, what we include with Prime, plus all our add-on services partners, including Lionsgate and many others, and movie rentals, and now Amazon X Player. We think about what is the right content for the right customer, and therefore that could come from something we program, we create, we produce, we acquire, or any of our partners do. And that is super important for us to be able to keep in mind as we offer and serve that. Technology will obviously play a role, but the intentionality in which we think about what's the next best thing for our customers is important. There are 2 layers that come into play. One is understanding the taste preferences, moods, behavior of the customer. Then other part obviously is in a multilingual country like ours, where obviously customers prefer content in a language, but also like to watch other languages. We have to be very thoughtful about, while we serve you your preferred language of content, but we have to also increase your linguistic palette to be able to give you lots more that we program across our diverse catalog in 10 languages. So I think personalization also plays a role where you say, what's your preferred language, but here, you could potentially like this. And then of course, making it easily accessible by virtue of subs and dubs and, our UI, which can be in multiple languages. So I think there's a layer of the customer preference, layer of what you want customers to potentially see, and of course serendipity, that here's a content they could potentially like based on their taste preferences, but from other languages. So all of this plays a role. I think the hub piece for us is very important, and there's a natural piece there as well of where customers could think about, you are ready for subscription, and you're part of Prime, or you are a part of accessing our content on Amazon MX Player, which is a very large reach base. Hey, would you want to get a premium content? Should we offer you this? So we look at all of these factors to bring it all in together.
Coming to you again, Netflix for the longest time has been regarded as sort of the gold standard in personalization, right? You almost go down to the level of giving a percentage match to each audience. But in that world of hyper-personalization, which is almost trying to serve as close as possible to what customers need, how do you balance that with exposing them to new content and new genres, right? Because discovery is almost counter to personalization in a way. In your algorithm, in your sort of philosophy, how do you guys balance the two?
I think all tough things in life are done in the most simplest ways. I think for the first time in human history, we are seeing the kind of confluence that's happening between technology and creativity. And technology is aiding creativity and storytelling to reach more and more people across the world in the language of their preference, whether it's taste, mood, it's experiencing new things. I think all of it is coming together across platforms. I wouldn't say just Netflix, but I feel streaming as a medium is something truly unique. It's a revolution, a creative revolution. And what is happening at personalization end is, when I look at Netflix, from our journey, our entire journey from when we began, product has been a very important part of taking this storytelling and creativity to as many people across the world as possible. It's a very democratic way because the product is always learning from what people are watching, what members want, what taste. So it's matching people, it's constantly adapting to what they want to watch, but also at the same time, we ensure that it's an evolving product, it's improving. So when we look at the rows that we have, someone, for instance, you will be matched with, if you prefer crime, you prefer thrillers, you prefer dramas, of course you will be matched with what you want to watch, but also at the same time, you will know what are the new releases on Netflix, what is trending, what are others watching, what people across the board. I think on this panel itself and everyone in the room, I think no one's Netflix will be the same. If all of us whip out our phones right now, everyone's Netflix will look a little different because it's their Netflix. So when we look at that, it is beautifully balanced with what everybody else is also watching. So you will always know trending, you will always have rows like Made in India, you will always have your language preferences, and you will have features like My List, reminders. So the product's job is to actually come together and serve you in the best possible way as the consumer of Netflix, as the audience on Netflix. So it will give you what you want, and it will also give the choice, control, and flexibility to you to see what others are watching and what else you want to experience.
Interesting. And it's amazing how digital companies across different sectors are starting to go deep on personalization. I think some of the work that the food companies have started to do is quite amazing in terms of personalization. But Bharat, coming to you, you guys have a very, at least in my expression, a unique strategy of leading by sports investment, right? And in some ways, your massive sport investment creates a big top funnel. And I'm assuming personalization for you is almost a performance driver of converting that massive top funnel into subscribers on other content and engagement with other content. Otherwise, you'll obviously have lots of entries and exits during the, the moment those sports events finish. In your product and tech journey, how are you looking at personalization? How are you looking at converting that top funnel into customers? How are you making sure that people, as millions and millions of people log into IPL every day, they stay on to get exposed to other pieces of content that you have? At some level, you almost have so much content, but there's always the risk people are coming in for that specific sports content and going out, right? So in that sense, it's almost a performance metrics for you guys, I'm assuming, to look at personalization far more deeper and differently than others.
Yeah, that's a very interestingly phrased question. So, with the fact that cricket runs on Jio Hotstar, anyone who is watching anything on the internet usually comes to the platform at least once or multiple times during a sports season. And in that context, see, just like any other piece of technology, personalization and all these this ML AI concepts, they help platforms achieve a particular goal. And in our case, it's essentially anyone who comes at least once a year is an annual active viewer. And we try to like get them as many months in a year as possible, which is like, deeply optimized for monthly active viewers divided by annual active viewers. That's the ratio that we optimize for, and personalization helps in that. So what I mean by that in simple English is if you come in for cricket, we hold you for entertainment, and that's the objective of personalization here. And in this context, it helps to think of this as like a Sherlock Holmes whodunit mystery, in the sense that most people leave clues about themselves when they come to the platform. They change the commentary to a regional commentary or Hindi commentary. Their IP address gives you a clue about where they are from, and you use those clues to like send back more hypothesis on them, and you say, hey, here is an in-house ad about some piece of entertainment content that you have. Do you want to add this to the watch list? Do you want to watch this more? Someone is going to bite at it. That gives clues about everyone else living around them or who looks similar to them, and then you double down on that hypothesis. And that's pretty much how we use personalization to like pick up all these small clues. If you changed your commentary to Tamil commentary, your entire home page switches to almost a Tamil-like feed or a Telugu-like feed, depending on what you've done with it. And a lot of content that is recommended to you will use that as a primary hypothesis and then build on from there. And just like all of the clues, your device, the quality or the premiumness of your device, that gives a clue on who you are. That helps us personalize, but not just ads, but also you might want to, like, if you have a high-end iPhone, you're watching Tamil commentary, maybe you want to watch, Thor say something in Tamil, which means we'll show you like Marvel dubbed in Tamil and then double down on that. So short answer to your question is, yes, top of funnel is there because of cricket, but the objective of personalization is somehow hold them on for the rest of the year, and we'll do anything that it takes to get there.
Gaurav, coming to you, you're the only one on the panel who actually who straddles across multiple mediums. Most of us are married to the streaming world. At Sony, you guys have a massive linear network. You obviously have a great streaming network. You're also one of the largest YouTube channels, globally. And with different mediums, how do you look at personalization? Social media mixed with YouTube on it almost adds a very different layer of spectrum for you.
Yeah, thanks, Rohit. I think I'll have a slightly different take from the rest of the group on this one. So our belief is honestly in the power of storytelling to cut across all kind of barriers. So therefore, the crux of our strategy is the belief in blockbusters. So we are talking here today as part of Waves. One of the great references that was made on the first day by the Prime Minister and the Minister for Information and Broadcasting is the strong anchoring in our country of incredibly powerful stories. So the fact is that this is the land of the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, and many such stories that have transcended time, they've transcended geography, transcended language. And I think that's the power that we absolutely believe in. So when something works, it truly works right across. So if we think of today, right, and we talk about an industry adjacent to all of us, that's the film industry. And it has had some problems, right? So the last few years have been a bit unkind, been a bit rough. But in this time, the film industry has also delivered its biggest hits, right? So we have just seen Pushpa 2, and we have just seen Chava, and before that Stree 2, and many others. And they have ratcheted up box office numbers that were truly never seen before. So I think what viewers in our country, and in my belief all over the world, is telling us, you tell a story that matches the moment, and then, you know, the bar is raised higher than ever before. So I think that's what all of us are in the business of trying to do. And I think one of the big things that society needs of mass media is the deep, wide, communal experience, right? There are many things that are happening to us individually, but equally, there are many things that we are feeling as a collective. And I think storytelling has to answer to that, right? So I think somewhere at the crux of our content strategy is the belief that you can find talent that matches the moment, and then hopefully, inshallah, you create a story that truly becomes a blockbuster. So you can't plan for a blockbuster, but every time the intent has to be, you're going to find a creative voice, and that creative voice will have a say and a way of looking at the world that truly matches the moment that's kind of big on the zeitgeist. So I think that would be my philosophy and suggestion to my team, my org, but equally to everyone here. We are here at Waves, we are talking to the new range of creators in our country, and I think that's the philosophy that I would like to suggest.
Neeraj, on that note of story, and we've seen the industry evolve with formats, but what that's also led is explosion of genres, right? If we go back to, and I've spoken about this, when we go back to the world of television, largely the content was sort of defined between 6 to 8 genres. Streaming has led to explosion of that to probably 75 to 100. But the creator economy, right, and you can almost trace back the evolution of YouTube and social creator economy in the last 5 years. It almost started with sort of mirroring the linear content that was already there as the first sort of starting point. But we've truly seen explosion of creator economy in the last 4 or 5 years with fresh content made really for those mediums coming out. And that's probably led to explosion of 1,000 genres, which allows you to go to smallest communities of interest. How do you look at personalization in that context, in that whole explosion from 6 to 8 genres to probably 1,000 genres?
Thanks, Rohit, and very, very good morning to everybody. I'm going to try and just paint a little picture here for the benefit of the audience. You're absolutely right. If you go back, say, 50 years from the start of television, a little more, perhaps in the Indian market, maybe 35 odd years, you had those 6, 8 genres. But you also had at that point in time, film as well, which still is. And you were perhaps getting to see the creative expressions of 500-600 creators, roughly about 500-600 films now, then maybe about 1,000-1,200 films now. And from that world, I think, what Netflix and Prime brought was a world of massive aggregation to begin with, which was, where basically prime time became my time, and binge, etc. happened. So you started with 30, 40 different genres, docudramas, this, etc. And this was also an era where multitasking was beginning to happen. You were watching something. If I'm watching one of Monika's shows, let's say Narcos, I was also searching about, Pablo Escobar, etc. And that entire component was beginning to happen. And then about 10 years back, you started seeing YouTube kind of come out from its cushioned world of music and, what you would call as traditional just UGC into the world of creators. And that started bringing us into the realm of the thousands that you say. I believe it's closer to 10, 15,000 sort of subgenres that have happened. So for instance, if I love golf, I could literally get into hyper-personalization in that itself. I could split golf into 50 subgenres. And we're now at a zone where you have, give or take a few million, at least 10 million quality creators globally. And then you add on top of that this whole space. And personalization journey had started. You know, Prime, Netflix were the pioneers in doing machine learning, bringing in search recommendation, bringing that in. But that was a decade back. Now in a world of Gen AI, you are at the cusp of, and I think all of us, if whether we are creators or platforms, one of the biggest issues we have to look at is that till now your content was reasonably finite because it was largely commissioned by one of you. You are now going to get into a zone where, to begin with, about 10 million creators are already creating, and then lace it with tools of Gen AI, which then have a life form of their own. So you're going to have hundreds of millions of hours of programming, which is just about started, and I'm not even going into the space of, you know, simple things like just broadening. I mean, how many of you all watched the Prime Minister's conversation with Lex Friedman, for instance, on YouTube? Now, one of the most fascinating things for me in that was the ability to real-time switch to get the Prime Minister to speak in Russian or to speak in English, you know, and it's a fabulous tool. I think all of us platforms, if just that were to be done, that's another layer of personalization that's being brought to the table. But my point is, ultimately with all of this, time is still finite, right? You still have 24 hours. And within that time, we are largely talking of this world of, let's say in India, 30, 35, 40 different OTT platforms broken up into 3-4 genres. You know, you've got the global leaders at the top, you've got the broadcasters, you've got some of the aggregators, and then you've got a range of regional storytellers as platforms that have emerged. I see the next 2 to 3 years that we're going to have to compete with extremely quality content coming from that creator economy, because that content is not, we are largely still in, we're thinking ourselves as entertainment. I think where video is heading is entertainment and skilling, entertainment and education. And a nation like ours, if you compare the kind of video streaming consumption that's happening on generic sort of content just for skilling in its own way, there's going to be a time where it'll start competing with entertainment related content because, you know, it leads to. So I think we are at the cusp of something fascinating because, to give you one analogy, like in the music industry, till about 1 year back, there used to be 100,000 new tracks which were uploaded daily. I can guarantee you that if somebody were to do a test, it would probably be 7-8x of that happening right now on a daily basis. And that is because it's still gated. The core platforms are still kind of gated in its own form. But the moment, and that same thing's going to happen on video as well. So I think our issue is here is going to be, how do we embrace that? And there are lots of positives with it. You know, you will create hyper communities with these using core tools. But over the next 2-3 years, as Gen AI tools for video creation become better, that is when we are not going to be able to enhance our time and the balance on what we create as and what is getting created is going to be an interesting one. We'll talk about that a little later.
Fascinating. And on the note of your, you're talking about, you touched upon the interaction between the creator economy and the consumer. Just to expand on that interactivity, and I think everybody on this panel has, as a company, looked at interactivity differently. We, as a studio, have looked at it more from a fandom point of view, on engaging with content and gaming and merchandise and theme parks. To now, and some companies have looked at interactivity as real-time consumer engagement. Some have looked at it more as a feature. Gaurav, how are you guys? And I know you have a wonderful, X-ray feature, which is another level of interactivity. It provides extra information. How are you guys looking at interactivity?
For us, the interactivity piece is about two ends of the customer's needs. One is express need of more information. So I want to know more about the cast, I want to know about the creators, I want to know more about what went behind the scene. And there is the unexpressed need, but untapped, of generating fandom and tapping onto the fandom and enhancing fandom. So I feel that each of the features, X-ray is a great example of that, basically is augmented content experience that you give customers to say, hey, if you want to know more, but like, if you're a fan, or you could become a fan. So the way we look at that is to really create and get you to the world of the show or the movie in a much more deeper, immersive way, but without leaving the content. So you can always come back into the content and experience more of that. The panelists talked about, social media. Of course, social media gives a lot of that. You can go and search for it. And still it will give you more. It will give you fan pages of all the characters and talent and so on. And that's also augmenting the world that we are creating. But one of the things we try to do on the service is, without interrupting your experience, how do you take you deeper into fandom? So our journey has really been in the fact that we don't interrupt your viewing experience. We really, as you go through, how do you immerse you further deeper in the show? So we don't start with, I want to put interactivity in it. I want to start with the fact that, do I want to provide more information? IMDb ratings of the show that you want to choose. Or I want to go deeper into knowing more about this and what went behind this, or the characters and so on. So, and you be very careful about not disclosing too much and spoiling your fun before you watch it, but yet leading you intrinsically into the story. So that's how we think about interactivity on the service.
I think Gaurav has looked at it more as fandom and feature. You guys have looked at it at a creative level, right? From back in the day with Bandersnatch and all the content that was probably done ahead of its time, to now your investment as a company into sports and foray into that, which is far more real time. How are you guys looking at interactivity? You've invested into resources over a period of time in different directions, which has evolved over a period of time. How have you seen that transcending from the whole, Black Mirror to now the sports, and how has that content journey essentially evolved interactivity for you guys?
Yeah, I think we've had a very interesting journey in interactivity, really taking storytelling to the next level, where audiences could actually have a play on it. We've done many such examples across. But I think as you keep evolving, the truest sort of measure of engagement is how much how much audiences are immersing more and more into these worlds. So I think in our journey of evolution, gaming has become a very important pillar and a very important focus area for Netflix. We have all kinds of games. If you look at Stranger Things, it's one of the, and to Gaurav's point also earlier, great stories actually can influence and become bigger and bigger with every passing season. That show has been loved by more and more people. Squid Game, which came recently, so many of the titles that we have across in India, from a Hira Mandi to Kapil, to so many titles that we do. I think as they engage with the audiences, you realize that with entertainment there is a certain level of engagement. With gaming there is another kind of engagement which is possible, and live experiences which are at scale. The amount of interactivity between not just your first screen but also your second screen that happened during Paul versus Tyson across the world, which was #1 in 78 countries. I think what it told us is that community experiences are important. Personalization helps every great story or experience become bigger and bigger. So interactivity has many shapes and forms, and constantly evolving and actually seeing which interactivity is more meaningful to the audiences is where we are.
And Gaurav, as Monika talked about so many layers of this interactivity, it's essentially also throwing a lot of data back into the system, right? AI is helping us sort of mine the data better. How is that helping you as a network to find great stories between linear versus OTT? Is there a difference? Is great story a great story? Is there a difference between a TV great story and an OTT story, great story? And where's data coming in all of this into play for you to sort of greenlight your next project?
So I think, just to refer back to the point on blockbusters, the public data that is available to all of us is that in the last bidding cycle for IPL, roughly $3 billion was paid for the streaming rights of IPL. And those rights in the last 18 years have been owned by 3 different companies, and many other companies have bid very high numbers to try and get those rights. So I think that's the data that we must always keep front and center, that there is incredible, amazing value in creating excitement, bringing in new talent, creating pulsating rivalries, and all the other storytelling elements that are so core to making IPL one of the greatest leagues in the world. So I think the second thing which is certainly happening, and this is where social media and YouTube in particular has played a pretty important role, is that it has altered the role of gatekeepers. So I think, traditionally when I started out, people like me, our companies, we were gatekeepers. We were listening to stories, trying to figure out which stories might work, and then taking the decision to greenlight or not. I think those kind of roles are kind of getting over and they're done. That's all yesterday. I think what we are beginning to see now is that storytellers actually find their voice and find that moment on their own. And then the platforms go in there to help, to enhance, to monetize. So the classical role has kind of really shifted, and therefore the role of organizations like any of ours is to, not really be playing, but to become great coaches, right? And the talent is out there. So I think to go back and make another cricket reference, John Wright, right? The great Indian former coach, one of the greatest coaches who brought modern coaching into the world of Indian cricket, and then went and at that time took a not such a high profile job to be the talent scout for Mumbai Indians, and then he goes around the country and he finds a Jasprit Bumrah, right? And he finds a Hardik Pandya, and then the rest is history. So I think that's where I personally feel the world is going, right? And let me give you a real life example, somebody I worked with and somebody who's worked on Amazon for sure, maybe on Netflix too, Bhuvan Bam, right? And like who made Bhuvan Bam a great storyteller and a star? Bhuvan Bam, right? He went to YouTube, created a franchise, showed his creative spark again and again and again, and then one day walked into my office with a series pitch, which I did not fully understand, but still commissioned, because I was deeply familiar with the phenomenon that he had become on his own. So I think the world has really, really shifted, and these are many ways in which the world is shifting, and from a Suryavanshi to a Bhuvan Bam, that's the world of today, and it's a pretty exciting place to be in. And it of course shifts our roles, and I think we should just sort of recognize that and play to this newer role.
Gaurav's world is obviously hardcore content-led. Your life certainly has to be more data-led. And you're, as a platform, already using data and AI to create some content, right? You already have features like daily horoscopes. I know you're also using data and AI to create products for advertisers. What are you and your team doing at the back end? What's the future roadmap like? How are you looking at AI, Gen AI, to add features to the app, specifically to get into, to play more and more active role in content creation?
I'll give a little bit of perspective on how accessible this has actually become over time. 10, 12 years ago, and it's easy for me to say this now because Gaurav Gandhi has left because he's still cleaning up some of the mess that I left in Prime Video, but ML AI was like super inaccessible in the sense that when you speak to a data scientist, they throw words like, matrix cross-factorization, multivariate regression, and those sort of terms at you, and that's the moment when you regret sleeping in all those college math classes, and you have to like quickly go wiki your way and understand what they are saying, right? From that point to now, when it's just a chat prompt away, specifically the horoscope thing, when we started that, AI generated daily horoscopes where there is an avatar which comes and gives you your daily horoscope on a personalized basis. It's like from entire content creation, like the creative, the engagement, the entire life cycle is actually taken over by AI. And it's not very hard for a person who's not like super tech savvy to actually get into this and do the entire thing. So if there's a small medium business advertiser who wants to create, creatives that are super highly personalized to different cohorts of people, they can actually easily do it. They don't need to like engage an agency to build like, different creatives for different cohorts of people. And there is a lot of tools and tricks that are so easily accessible nowadays that makes the engagement on content, whether it's ad content or entertainment content, so easy and so personalized. So the future of the roadmap is to essentially figure out a way in which content creation, the creatives, and the way in which you target to get your required engagement. All of these things are very streamlined and very easy for people who actually don't have the tech savviness to understand ML and AI and all those things to just, speak in simple English and get to the outcomes that they want. That's the roadmap that we are trying to build for the future.
Neeraj, with so much of data, see, in my opinion, one of the perennial problems we've always had as an industry, I think we've all evolved business model a zillion times over the last decades and decades. But fundamentally, our revenue sources are still either advertising or transactions, right? Transactions could be SVOD, it could be TVOD, but fundamentally we are boxed into those two revenue streams. We haven't really created any third revenue stream after decades of work. Does this new world of tech and data enable us to create new revenue streams in the future?
So the short answer is, I don't think we have a choice. For much of, what the rest of the panel has been also talking about is that if you look at it, the consumer, not of today, just over the next 12, 24 months is going to be further spoilt by choice. So you are having a world of what Monika spoke about briefly is, gaming and entertainment. I visualize, think of it almost like a cube. Up till now, whatever form of content we consumed, whether it was audio or video or gaming or live or extended, you were kind of in that realm, as it were. You're going to start getting into a zone wherein you could potentially from a game move into a movie. You could do it through fandom, or you could literally, the ecosystem itself will create that kind of operability. But to the point on data, so when this whole sort of, Gen AI explosion happened, we were at a session and I threw an idea out there. This is the time when the AI mission of India was being set up. Now, one of the things which India has done very smartly, if you see the last 15 years, is the platformization of which is really the platform story of India. It started with identity. Then 7, 8 years back, you had UPI on top of that. And now we are attempting things like democratizing commerce, whether it's through ONDC. So I said, hey, what if, we were to democratize data? So how would you go about sort of doing that? I said, well, today, if I'm using a cab service, or I'm doing commerce, or I'm going onto an entertainment platform, or I'm ordering food, or I'm going into, and ordering some medicine, or I'm on a fitness program. These are all multiple things. They all have data in different places. But visualize a scenario wherein if you were empowered, now if I went to Amazon to shop, and for the next 15 minutes, I am leasing my data to Amazon of all my other activity for the last 1 week, 2 weeks, doesn't matter. And then, if it's enhancing the experience for me, then think of this almost like, for all of you sort of Marvel fans here, the Thanos dust effect, as it were. Now you've gone there. Once you're out, that data is gone. It's still with you. So if you were to... So to your point on, it's really data which is core being leveraged upon, right? So the monetization aspects, to me, the next 1 or 2 options that are there is, one is it leads to commerce. That technically, the early signs have commenced. If you see what Instagram, YouTube are doing as platforms, they're enabling creators to lead to transaction as well, right? So you've got these communities, it could lead into that direction. Whereas most OTT platforms have either been, you're a free service, or you're a TVOD, SVOD of sorts. I think that's one aspect that will happen, and I feel were there to be a broader ability to bring data from other places as well, then you will have another form of monetization that will happen purely for the kind of time spent being done on these sort of platforms. Yeah. So little bit sort of geeky into the future, but that's what Waves is for, right? We're expected to give you all a little imagination. Maybe a bunch of these folks will go around and build something like that.
No, I fully agree. I think unless we evolve to find ways to broaden the businesses and to leverage the technology, a bunch of companies will continue to face challenge. I do want to round off. I think we're just in right time. We're obviously sitting in waves. Honorable Prime Minister echoed what we've all been talking about for a while, saying how do we move from $28, $30 billion to $100 billion. I did want to get around with each of you in no specific order. What is really the opportunity ahead of us as a market, as a country? You can look at it as an ecosystem, whether you want to look at it by companies, consumer content, or more specifically in the value chain of production, distribution, engagement. But even for the audience sitting out here, what's really the opportunity ahead of us in any order?
So I think the massive opportunity is for storytelling excellence. And for that, we need upskilling. I think Neeraj's point was absolutely spot on. And I think step 1 here has been taken. It's a great initiative to create a center of excellence, to train people in the art and in the science of building great entertainment. And I think as a country, we need many such centers of excellence. So till a few years ago, we did not have a single school that was teaching people how to write for television. So how are you going to get great television if nobody is being taught how to write television? So our writers were learning on the job, and they were learning by watching other shows which were on TV. So, that's like saying, okay, you're learning how to play cricket by watching Sachin Tendulkar on TV. Well, Sachin Tendulkar on TV can inspire you, but you still need to go and have that academy and, hit those thousands of balls every day, and a coach who tells you what you're doing right and what you're not doing right. And that's center of excellence, that's coaching, that's just, being told and learning what's best all around and what's happened in the past and what's happening elsewhere. So I think the massive opportunity for us, for all of us as a society, and definitely for the new crop of young talent emerging, is that knowledge is far more accessible today than any time in the past. And I think what we need to do as industry and as government is sort of really partner deeply to build these centers. I think there is a reason why a large number of these startups have sort of happened in the Bay Area, in America, because they've invested radically in creating the best educational institutions. And the industry has participated strongly in that. And we are beginning to see similar things happen in other parts of the world. And we are beginning to see that happen now in India. And I think a lot more focus, importance and emphasis needs to be given on that. Where do we get here over the next 5 to 10 years will determine where as an industry we are headed.
Super. I think investing into skills and education is
I
probably
just wanted to add something, to what Gaurav was saying. I think as India, we haven't even begun scratching the surface of the stories we can tell. We are a land of stories and storytellers, but I think where high quality storytelling is concerned, we have joined the journey a little late, at scale, I mean. And I think human capital that India has and human creativity, I think that is the potential which will be unlocked over the next few years. And that is the biggest, every fifth person in the world is an Indian. With the tools that are coming, with the access that is beginning to happen, what storytelling can be unlocked at an individual level, to what you were saying, and at a scaled level, what we can do, what thoughtful and purpose-driven AI can do, that is going to be the most defining superpower for us. And I think if we just look across the board, our digital revolution has been one of the most responsible revolutions digitally across the world, whether we look at UPI, all the platforms that Neeraj was also talking about. So I think even in the creative and entertainment revolution, the AI revolution, I think India has a lot to contribute, and a lot to contribute in the long-term value and in a responsible way.
No, super. Thanks so much. I think we can all agree we have just innumerable number of stories as a country. And investing into education, investing into ability to create scale, to be able to tell those stories, can only take us significantly forward. But thank you all. You've all been a wonderful panel. Thank you all so much.